LGP, Looking Glass Playhouse, started as a group of actors who wanted to put together a small fundraiser for a local function here in Lebanon. And afterwards they looked back and said, hey, we can do this. And so they started scraping together the money and putting together the show. Into a show. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Now, honestly, the show does require a lot of work to put a show together. It takes an army. It really does. You have to bring the right people together for production crew to bring their creative ideas and their picture in together, and you have to plan ahead of time to figure out, what direction do you as a team want to go with, what direction do you as a director want to go with, just to make sure that the vision is put together as a whole picture on the stage every night.
To start the lighting for a show, actually each show is different. It kind of depends on whether it's a play or a musical. I kind of try to come up with a concept by either knowing that the show will have a sense of place, if there's a full set, or if it's not a full set that I have to use the lights to show a sense of place, or time of day, or location. Various things that's what I usually start off with.
I like to start as soon as the director suggests that I might be costuming a show, because if I have time to think about it and ponder it in my mind, I do so much better than if someone says, oh, I'm doing a show next week. The more time I have, the better, so I can think about it, and also so I can assemble my crew.
How do I get started undertaking a project like this? We'll spend time listening to the music, reading the story, determining what kind of story we want to portray, and then just kind of goes from there.
Well, typically we have the rights to the show almost a year in advance, and so we're already looking ahead to next year and trying to decide how we're going to stage things and how we're going to fulfill different aspects of the shows. And some directors start immediately. Some directors have a lot of the groundwork done before they even put their application in. And and some of us have the ideas in the back of our heads for years before we even get the opportunity to put that show on the stage. So it just really depends on the director and how we put our vision onto this stage here at Looking Glass. Essentially, we ask the publishing houses for the rights for the show, and then as a organization, we send that whole list out and notify everybody, hey, there's the shows. But for a director standpoint, it's basically a lot of research, getting the backstory, what the show's about, what's intended, maybe reaching out to see what other theaters have done to do the show.
You need to know what the story's about, the words involved, and it also has to do with the music, making sure that what you're doing can correlate with how the music is being played and the words that are usually with the lyrics.
Lights can tell a lot of the story of some shows, especially a few recently have had bare minimum of set, and the lights have had to give a sense of place, sense of time, without having set pieces or even sometimes different costumes or props to help with that.
There's so much more that goes into costuming a show than you think about. It's not just making sure that there are no naked actors. It's also making sure that every piece of the costume is right, that it reflects the director's vision, and that what you think the actors are going to be wearing can actually be acted in. There's so much that you have to consider.
What goes into blocking this show? Again, that all depends on the director. Everybody does it differently. A lot of people will watch previous shows and just to see how things played out. Some shows you might have the exact same blocking that you might have saw in another production. Some shows it's completely new creativity. Some directors block to every inch that you're on the stage, and others just say get on stage, and from there you have freedom to improv it. So it all depends, but typically blocking is essentially there to get you there on the stage in the right spot so that everybody can see you, and then how you portray that character after that is entirely up to the actor. What's it like to direct a show? You know, I like to refer to it, depends on the show, but sometimes it's like herding cats. Honestly, you have to give the actors the creative direction to let them create their own characters or their own personas. So in a sense, you're really more of a manager in some shows than a director, because you're basically making sure that things take place and it's not chaos. But at the same time, directing a show is your vision as a director. So it really comes down to what it is that you want to do on the stage.
Well, I'm probably not the typical stage manager. Because a stage manager, as they do in college, would just be giving direction from the light booth. So the responsibilities that I take on are making sure that everything is set up in the wings or backstage and the props are all ready, helping with costume changes. Those are typically not done. That's mostly done by the crew. In LGPs, we don't have a lot of crews a lot of times, so you just have to take on all those job responsibilities.
How do you design a set? Well, designing a set is typically, you have to get your interpretation in line with the director's interpretation. Some set designers come in with crazy ideas and large elaborate sets, and the director turns around and says, I want minimal. So you have to make sure that first you're in line with what the director wants for production. And then from there, it's just a lot of creativity. Sometimes you take elements that have a reference in the show and put those into place. And sometimes, you go big and bold and have this elaborate set. But sometimes even just something simple as a bench and a light can be enough to tell the story. Well, honestly, you need to have qualified builders. You need to have people who have a easy understanding of, hey, I need you to build this. You get a lot of volunteers and people who can paint and do crafts and things like that, but actually putting it all together and creating a set can be a challenge. And so it just takes a little bit of skill up here on the stage. And sometimes you just need to have the stage to yourself just to kind of put that vision into play.
On average, I spend, I'm going to quote Winnie the Pooh, days, weeks, months, who knows, more than people think.
It's a play that only has maybe one or two scenes that could work on for a few hours outside of rehearsal. Very intense musical, I could be here sometimes every rehearsal, the entire run of the show, plus multiple weekends, 5-10 hours a day sometimes. And a lot of shows I'm tinkering up until the last performance. Just a small little fade or or what have you, but it's up till the end.
How much time do I spend on a show? Well, this was my first show play-wise, or production-wise. In the past, I've done other things, and it would take usually, overall, you're talking weeks. To write something, it depends on how long it is. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 3 hours.
What is Tech Week and what is it like? The purpose of Tech Week is really just to bring the entire show together. That's when you bring your sound, your lighting, your music, your stage calls, bring it all together into one production. When it's done correctly, it runs like a well-oiled machine. And Tech Week that's the opportunity to get all those pieces squarely into place. Because you might have been blocking the show and running the show without certain things happening, and once you get them into place, you realize things just don't work. And that's where Tech Week comes into play, is where you have to try to work together as a team and to get things back on track.
I have a very, very bad feeling about saying that your job is done when the run begins and the costumes are assembled, because things happen during a show. Once I had to miss a show, And on that show, an actress lit her pants on fire on stage while she was wearing them. So I always like to be here for every performance because things break.
You can always tweak. You can always, you can always try to get the performers enthused to take it a step further, or it's never going to be perfect, so there's always going to be areas where we can improve.
There's a lot of behind the scenes things that take place, and a lot of them are thankless jobs. Everything from just the janitorial services that take place here, because we're our own cleaners. We have to take out our own trash and things like that. Ticketing is very thankless because we have to deal with all the customers and deal with all the questions, making sure that people have the right seats and things like that. Down to just administrative assistants who take care of your emails and take care of reading lines for you and things like that.
We are all volunteer based here, and so what goes into ticketing is mostly just time, answering our recordings, answering emails for people that want swapped tickets, answering questions that people may have about the content of a show, or maybe even what to expect with our particular theater. Keep everything as well priced as we can, because we want to be able to provide quality theater to our community at an affordable price that people can bring the entire family. We rely heavily on donations and grants in order to keep our doors open. Advertising. So we take lots of photos. We create engaging posts. A lot of our advertisement has moved to social media, mostly because our social media is a relatively cheap platform.
The hardest part would be once I determine, okay, this spot I want this, and this spot I want this. It's that middle piece of how do I get from here to there. That's usually the hardest part.
For me, it's a lot of times it's being satisfied. It's knowing when something is the best that it's going to be. That's because I'm always seeing little spots of, oh, I could have done that better. I'll think of something sometimes years later. Oh, I could have done that with that show, or oh, I had this light that we have now. A show 2 years ago, I would have done this differently.
Overall, what's the most difficult part of a production? Honestly, it's the last day when it all comes to an end. You've put 6 weeks or longer. If you're an actor, you've put several months if you're a part of the production crew. Like I said, up to a year or longer to put a show together, and to watch it all come down in an hour or less when they do a set strike. That's probably the hardest part of the production.
It'll take some time to get back to you. These distant lands give me deja vu. Hills of sand and precious memories. We used to sit by the ocean side. Your heart, your hair, so close to mine. Baby, I just wanna keep you company. Oh, I like holding on to you, like holding on to you, like holding on to you, like holding on to you. Baby, I like holding on to you.